A lot to discuss on today's Broncos Breakdown as we have a practice squad to go through, a couple of notable departures after roster cutdown day, some Russell Wilson news as he enters our life once again, and more to get to. So let's start with the practice squad as pretty much the entire 17-man practice squad has been filled. We'll run through the names and we'll highlight some in particular. Fullback Michael Burton, this was a no-brainer. He was released yesterday, but there was good expectation that he would return on the practice squad. Running back Tyler Badie had a nice preseason. A few wide receivers, Lil'Jordan Humphrey, David Sills, Michael Bandy. I'll talk more about Humphrey in a little bit. Tight ends, Thomas Yassmin from Australia. He is an international pathway player, so he does not count towards a roster spot. So that's why the Broncos basically have a 17-man practice squad as long as he is on it. Tight end, Donald Parham. We'll talk about him in just a little bit as well, but maybe one of the more notable names of the bunch. A couple of offensive linemen, defensive tackle Jordan Miller, Matt Henningsen, happy to see him back. I thought he had a good chance of getting claimed off the waiver wire. Don't be surprised if you see him elevated on Sunday against the Seahawks. Outside linebacker Dondrea Tillman, a few DBs as well, and then offensive lineman Calvin Throckmorton, who I think has a good chance of being elevated if an injury pops up to anyone on the offensive line. But for the most part, you can see the Broncos brought back pretty much everyone that was with them during the summer. Only one outside name coming in, and that is tight end Donald Parham, not the Raiders one, who we'll talk about more in just a moment. But really quickly, I just wanted to update everyone on the like battle we're doing with our Seahawks channel here at Chat Sports leading into week 1. Shout out to everyone who liked our video yesterday. We absolutely cooked them, over 100 more likes. But I don't want to take the foot off the gas right now. Let's ship pump the Seahawks Today channel in likes and smash that thumbs up button. But let's talk about Donald Parham, who comes over from an AFC West foe, the Chargers, where he has been for his entire 4-year NFL career. After being a UDFA, he eventually made his way onto the Chargers roster, made a handful of starts, 23 to be exact, in 4 seasons. He's 6'8". If you don't know much about him, that's perfectly fine. If there's one thing to know about him, he is a basketball player on the football field, which means he is awesome in the red zone. Look at the amount of touchdowns he's had in his 4-year career compared to just the number of receptions and targets. Like, the guy had 3 touchdowns off of 10 grabs his rookie season. He's not going to help you a whole lot between the 20s, but inside the red zone, he's going to be an awesome toy for Bo Nix to use. If he just wants to lob it up to a big body, that's Parham. So with the Broncos wide receiver room not having a bunch of huge targets in it, I think you're going to see a good-sized role for him, and I expect him to get elevated onto the 53-man roster for game day the first couple of weeks. Here's how he stacks up with the rest of the tight end room. Now, keep in mind, he was not signed to the active 53-man roster. He was signed to the practice squad. But a lot of times you see veterans get signed to the practice squad, and then they max out their 3 free elevations weeks 1, 2, and 3. And at that point, there's a good chance that someone's injured and they can just take their roster spot. There's no point in releasing someone when you can just put them on your practice squad and then get 3 free elevations. And then you're forced to make a decision, but at that point, you either know what you have in him and you want to give him a roster spot, or he hasn't really produced much, so you're happy to let him go. Or, like I said, someone got injured, their roster spot is open, and he can fill in right there. But I like this addition altogether. I think he's going to be a really good red zone target for Bo Nix. But let me remind everyone, this is the practice squad. And I know that right now we're all kind of starved for football because preseason's over, so we are getting closer and closer to the regular season. And roster cutdown day is a fun's not the right word to use it, but a jam-packed news day with a lot of transactions, signings, releases, trades. But remind yourself that in a couple of weeks, when the season gets underway, it's the starters. And the practice squad guys, well, sure, it's nice to have some familiar faces get added to it. They often hardly ever see the field in the regular season. So sorry to be a little bit of a downer, but I do think some people need to be reminded of that because I just see people online get way too passionate about signing a guy to their practice squad or losing out on a guy to their practice squad who signs elsewhere. It's like, why are you losing sleep over this? Practice squad players hardly ever see the field. Now, before we look at some other news items to hit on, I do want to tell everyone watching about our good friends over at Factor. Fuel up for upcoming football season with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time for the season thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Crush your wellness goals this month with dietitian-approved meals and ingredients that you can trust. I'm trying to get into better shape myself. I'm walking to work pretty much every single day. I'm cutting out junk food, and Factor makes this so much easier for me because as someone who works in the sports industry, we know that news can break at any moment. So having really simple and easy-to-go meals like Factor, man, it makes my life a lot easier. So head to factormeals.com/BroncosChat50 and use code BroncosChat50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code BroncosChat50 at factormeals.com/BroncosChat50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. So as for some notable departures, Tim Patrick, who frankly, I'm shocked did not get traded. I figured some team would want to give up a 7th-round pick for him, but ultimately he was released. He was signed to the Detroit Lions practice squad. I fully expect him to get elevated as long as he does not get injured or have some awful practice in a row or two, to get elevated to their active roster on game day for his 3 free elevations the first 3 weeks, and then if all goes well, he gets signed to their active roster. So best of luck to Patrick. No ill will towards him whatsoever, of course. Samaje Perine, he follows suit with a handful of other Broncos players that have gone over to the Chiefs after being released by the Broncos. Like Melvin Gordon did it. Montrell Washington, remember him? That kick returner who was supposed to be the next Devin Hester, an X factor for us. That didn't happen. Samaje Perine goes over to Kansas City, where I have no doubt Andy Reid will find his ways and get everything possible out of Perine when the Broncos play the Chiefs twice this year, or he won't even be on the team at that point. So it's only going to be one way or the other. Either Perine won't be a factor whatsoever, or he'll go off for 2 touchdowns. There's no in between, of course. And then Jalen Virgil, remember he made the active roster, was it 2 years ago? He signed with the Bills practice squad. He was in between the Broncos and the Bills. I read that he picked Buffalo because he felt like he'd have a better chance of cracking their 53-man roster. So best of luck to him in Buffalo as Josh Allen's new weapon. Brandon Johnson, another wide receiver who left. He went to the Steelers. He's reuniting with his old wide receiver coach from Denver. And, of course, Russell Wilson, who we'll talk about more in just a little bit. But Brandon Johnson, I feel like he is one of the most efficient touchdown scorers we've ever seen. He had 4 touchdowns last year off of 19 grabs. He had that one Hail Mary to end the Commanders game. So I'll miss Brandon Johnson. I always felt like he was a really good player, and I would not be surprised to see him actually get on the field and have some meaningful snaps for the Steelers because their wide receiver room is cheeks. But some practice squad players just to keep a closer eye on. Michael Burton, I think he's going to get elevated early on. Lil'Jordan Humphrey, I fully expect to get elevated to the active roster week 1 against the Seahawks. Donald Parham as well. And the defensive tackle, Matt Henningsen. If Jordan Jackson isn't, bringing the same juice he had in the preseason, they could easily make that switch and elevate Henningsen and move Jackson down to their practice squad. So these are just 4 names if you want to keep a close eye on that could actually have some major contributions or even have somewhat of a role. These are 4 guys to watch for. Some other news that actually pertains to the Broncos, believe it or not. Ian Rappaport reporting that Mike Tomlin has now announced that Russell Wilson will be their starter. Now, I'm not trying to just be obsessive over our ex, but the Steelers do come to town week 2, so if you were wondering, hey, is there any chance Justin Fields might be the Steelers quarterback? Unlikely. Mike Tomlin did say that Justin Fields is too talented not to have some packages created, so we'll probably see a mixture of Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, but I think Russell Wilson's probably going to be in line to start week 2 unless week 1 goes horribly, horribly wrong, which seems like a really short leash to pull, or he gets injured. So which game are you guys more excited for? Or how about this? If you had to pick one game to win, which one would you rather win? Week 1 in Seattle, there's nothing better in the NFL than starting off 1-0, or Week 2 home against Russell Wilson and the Steelers. I'd probably go for the Steelers one just out of the drama and the spite, especially after losing to Hackett and the Jets last year. You don't want to lose those revenge games or those return games, so let's go with Week 2 against the Steelers. Before we get on out of here, I want to show some quick love to the Blue and Orange Club. Slap yourself. I don't give a buck. I don't give a duck. John E. Thank you guys so much for supporting us during our watch parties. Greatly, greatly appreciated, of course. And if you want to get shout outs for the entire 2024 season, come hang out with us during our watch parties. $100 super chat, and we'll add you to the club. Also, one other quick news item I meant to share yesterday, but I forgot. So the Broncos announced that they are going to be breaking ground on their new practice facility. These renderings came out a few months ago, but I just wanted to refresh everyone's memory. So there's going to be a lot of changes being made to Broncos Country, starting with the practice facility. Stadium, I'm not sure about, just because they continue to spend and invest so much in the current stadium. My guess is they're going to be there at least until their lease runs out, which is sometime 10 years from now, and maybe we see the Broncos start breaking ground on a new stadium, which is going to sound crazy to say out loud, 2035-ish, somewhere in that range. At that point, the current stadium will be about 35 years old. So that's going to be the new practice facility. It's an improvement on the already pre-existing one, same location, so they're not moving anywhere, but that's going to be super fun and exciting, and it'll be a fun place for players to want to come play for, because great facility, that's going to attract free agents and things like that, or keep players there when they are in between two teams. That will do it for us on today's episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel for more updates all year long.